Alexander.
Okay, thank you. Hi, everybody. Welcome. My name is Alexander Meijers, and I'm going to talk about how to empower your workers using Remote Assist. So first, we have a few slides from the event. One is that there's going to be a name change. I think you have heard this already 2 times or 3 times. It's going to be the new Microsoft 365 Collaboration Conference and will be held on next year, 23rd to 25th. So we also have the generous sponsors who are helping out to make this event happening, which is great. And this is a really cool one. I have one myself, Oculus Quest. It's one of the best VR headsets. So yeah, so submit your answers to actually enter the raffle because you want to have such a device. It's great. It's perfectly great. And last but not least, important, if you look at how nowadays everything is around COVID, a part of the funds from the sponsors are going to support community relief, and it is possible to donate yourself. So do that if you're able to do this. So perfect. So let's start the session. So to talk a little bit about myself, my name is Alexander Meijers. I'm a XR architect and evangelist. I will explain a little bit about what it is, but I'm actually a Microsoft Windows Development MVP for mixed reality. I initially started in my early years with SharePoint. I've done lots of SharePoint, went over to cloud, to Azure, and at some point I think now about 4 years ago, my current boss at that time decided we had to have an HoloLens. And that actually, the device was used for 2 weeks, then it came into some kind of closet. I asked if I could take it with me in the weekend. And the result is that after a few years that you're running a mixed reality user group in the Netherlands. I'm actually running the Global XR community, which does Global XR Talks, which is new every month. We do that in All Space VR in virtual reality. We have a Global XR bootcamp once per year. So I'm doing a lot in the community and try to do a lot around mixed reality. My challenge is always to see if I can combine it with Office 365, and Remote Assist, of course, is one of those things. So for the agenda for today, I want to talk about what is mixed reality, because not everybody knows what it is or what's the difference with augmented reality or others. Talk a little bit about Microsoft HoloLens. Then Microsoft Dynamics 365 Remote Assist, explain what it is. I'm going to talk a little bit about Remote Assist with Dynamics for field services. It's a really big topic and it's not able to do it within the same time we have now. So we'll highlight a few of the things there. We'll talk about some challenges, software licenses and deployment. And if there's still time left, I'm going into some of the functionality of upcoming release of Remote Assist. I'm going to try to do some demos, but we just noticed that it was a little bit tricky when I was already sharing my screen. So I'm going to switch a little bit with the screens as soon as I'm trying to do a demo to see if that actually works. We have to see if that is going well. Otherwise, demo gods. So first of all, mixed reality and Microsoft HoloLens 2. If I talk about realities, then for me there are 3 realities. One is virtual reality. Virtual reality for me is immersing in completely digital world. When I put on a VR headset, I'm not aware of my environment anymore. One of the biggest issues with VR is that you don't know where you are within a few minutes. I play a lot of games in virtual reality, and I actually have hit my girlfriend once or more with one of the controllers when moving around in the room and not seeing her. So that's actually virtual reality. If you talk about augmented reality, you're talking about enhancing the actual world around us with digital information. But the digital information, which can be anything like video, sound, or holograms or whatever, is bound to the person who's looking at it. And that's the difference with mixed reality. With mixed reality, your device, which you're using, in this case HoloLens, is aware of the environment around me. So it knows there is a floor, there's a table, there is a wall, there is a ceiling. And it is able to bind those digital information blocks to that real world. Now, this can be a little bit strange because you would say normal the nowadays phones from Apple and Android are able to put everything into the room or put something on the wall. You have to understand that when that began and when it was augmented reality, that the functionality to actually bind to something was not there yet. So to be honest, devices who do that are actually mixed reality devices. So talk about Microsoft HoloLens 2, the next step in the future. I think a lot of you already have seen at some point the HoloLens 1. So I'm going to talk a little bit about HoloLens 2. I have one with me here, and it's actually the next step in the future. So a few things which are important. One is the device itself is a completely new redesigned device. So it has a new Qualcomm processor and it uses a lot of different new things. It uses about 7 cameras. 4 cameras and 1 depth camera are used to actually identify the environment around us. That's the spatial awareness, knowing where there's a floor, where there's everything. The 1 camera is actually used to record, so that I'm, for example, trying in one of my demos, showing you guys what I'm seeing through the HoloLens. And the 2 others are actually pointed to the eyes, because the device also supports eye tracking and is able to recognize where your eyes are looking at, so even to identify how you who is putting the device on. Which is of course incredible cool, because you have to understand HoloLens is an enterprise product and is mainly used in the industry. So for engineers, it's really great to put the device on your head without having to enter your username and password, because you do automatically signing in on iris. Now the other thing, you see on the left down the fact that you have natural gestures. With the old HoloLens, you had 2 gestures, like the tab gesture and the gesture to get your menu. Now you're actually able to control everything within space by using your hands, or a combination of hands and eyes. And you can do that near or far, which means near I can actually touch it, and far means I'm too far away to touch it, and then I can use like a Spider-Man web effect to actually pick it up. So that's actually what it is. I'm gonna try if I can actually do a demo. That's a good one, always fun. So let me first try if I can actually connect. So if that's not possible, I will need to switch to another screen. Yeah, so it looks like I have to switch to another screen. So let me try that. You can still hear me, I presume? Yeah, okay, perfect. So you won't see the screen at the moment. So I'm now going to connect to my desktop. Oh, it's having trouble. No, to my regret, it's not working. So I'm going to show you something else. I'm going to share my desktop again. So if I'm right, you will see my desktop. I will show myself for the moment. So you can actually see I'm wearing a HoloLens 2. I'll take it off. I'll explain a little bit about the device. The next demo will be more easier because I'm going to stream it to a Teams client. But as you can see here, it's the device itself. So you have the 4 cameras in front of it with the depth camera and the normal camera. It actually reacts on my hands if I'm doing something. And what I did for a trick is I actually made it so that you can actually pull it up, so you don't have to put it down anymore. So you're going to see a little bit more about HoloLens later. So sorry for that. It makes it always difficult to demonstrate things. So let's continue with the presentation. So for Microsoft, mixed reality has a specific value proposition. And what I already said is they focus on the enterprise market, which means that they're focusing on improving skills. They try to upgrade efficiency and quality gains. And most important, it is to empower your first line workers. A lot of people think when you talk about the modern workplace, you always think about the modern workplace where a office employee is working. But when you're looking at mixed reality value proposition, it's mostly in the industry, which means the modern workplace is actually the field engineer working in on a factory floor. So let's talk about Microsoft Dynamics 365 Remote Assist. So some organizational challenges men have is on work and support, job certification, and cost. If you look at work support, the challenges for companies are the fact they are, for example, operate on remote locations. If they have to do rework, which of course, which happens by bad assessment, because one of the things we found out is that a lot of the engineers do not want to take the step to actually do a call to an expert and then try to fix themselves, which in most cases results in rework. So there's a barrier to ask the expert. It's also, one of the other things is very important, it's difficult to visualize the situation. I had a customer actually they got pictures sent over, and based on the pictures, they couldn't investigate what it was. And eventually the third picture, which was never sent over, was shown the example. Using new technology like mixed reality could actually help with this. So another one is job satisfaction. For example, an expert who is helping an engineer out, let's say on a vessel, has to do a lot of traveling. So it means he's lots away from home. There's a lot of work pressure going on. Imagine that a person like that can actually do its work from its home office. I'll talk about it later. And the last one, I will move my position from this, is cost. The costs are immense. If you talk about travel expenses or operational support costs, let's take the example of the vessel, which I will take further later on, is the expert has to fly over. As long as the expert is not there, the vessel has to stay in the harbor. So it costs a little extra money, but because nothing is happening. So and in some cases, it's very difficult to get the expert on board, depending on which harbor the vessel is laying down. So for fieldworkers in different industries, it's important to deliver better and quicker support, have the ability to do training and support from an expert without having the expert on site. So having an expert looking through his eyes and see what he is doing. And important for companies reducing operational support costs. To give you some example, operational and support costs can actually be downgraded to tons of dollars and even to millions, depending on which scenarios you choose for this. So what I already said is most of the things are happening in the offshore maritime industry and construction. I know with the current COVID that it's also used by hospitals for doctors, but I think, to my opinion, remote assist is mainly, if you look at the fact where it can be used most often, where there is definitely a return of investment, you will see it in those four. So what if there was a solution for these problems, all these problems? And there is, and it's called Microsoft Dynamics 365 Remote Assist. So Remote Assist is a tool which allows field workers remotely to get knowledge and guidance by an expert who is in the office or is at home, like when I'm now at home. And that's what Remote Assist does. So what are the advantages of Remote Assist? It allows me to do, for example, troubleshooting. So I can actually consult with an expert and ask if he can look with me, or he can show something on his desktop and let me and allow me to figure together out what the issue is. Imagine this: the expert doesn't have to fly over to a vessel, but instead of that, you can actually call into the engineer, and then hour later, it can actually call to another engineer on another vessel. And this allows an expert to help engineers, multiple engineers on the same day. The other thing is that it makes communication process easier. At the moment when people don't have remote assist, they use things like WhatsApp or email, specifically in regions or areas where there is no or almost no internet. You can imagine it takes a long time to get the information, and that makes the process taking much longer, meaning that if they send an email, it takes at least an hour before they get a reaction, and so forth, so forth. So trying to solve the issue will take more and more time. And as I already said, it brings the barriers down. A lot of engineers who don't want to ask help just because they find it difficult to do that, because they have to actually to send out an email through the captain so the captain knows, and that brings a lot of barriers. And now they can actually put on a device, do the call, and that's it. So it easily makes problem solver. From a productive perspective, there are two things which are important. It allows you to achieve more DM hours, and it increases productivity, because I'm now able to do a lot more on one day. And the cool thing about Remote Assist is that it is a no-code solution, which means you don't need to program anything. It's just a finished, usable solution. So how does it work? I always say it is almost mathematical. It's like Office 365 Teams, what we're now using. And I think that's one of the reasons why my demo was a little bit having trouble. And combining it with mixed reality will actually cost to have Microsoft Dynamics 365 Remote Assist. So what does it? And I'm going to explain it with what I said with the engineers in the vessels. So let's say we have an engineer on a vessel. An engineer has a problem or an issue to resolve, or he's not able to resolve it by himself. So what he can actually do is he can put on an HoloLens and then just do a Teams call through the Remote Assist app, which is installed on the HoloLens. The fun thing is that because it works with eye recognition, he is logged on to as the current user, and he gets all his experts or for him important. So he sees only the experts which are for him most important, because an engineer for example, the engine room has different experts than the one who's on the bridge. So when he does the call with the Remote Assist app, it actually does a call to an expert who is using only Microsoft Teams, which means the expert doesn't have to, can be on the office, can be on the way, can be at home. As long as it has a good connection, he will be able to contact with the engineer. And at that point, they can provide support and guidance. So that's actually how Microsoft Remote Assist simply put works. So it allows you to monitor field services. So as I said, it solves problems in a short time instead of an expert flying over, be there for 3 days and coming back. And of course, you're connecting with the best of Microsoft, using the latest of Microsoft Teams and using the latest devices. So what are the product features? And I'm going to show this later in the demo. And I know for sure that I can show that demo because I will send over the image to the expert, and the expert is actually able to. I'm able to stream that, so that makes it easy. So there are a few things. One is I'm able to do hands-free audio and video calling, of course, because it's an HoloLens. There is another type device you can actually use. I will come back to that later. There is in-call text chat. And in-call text chat allows you to, for example, if for some reason the sound doesn't come over or that there is a problem because of low bandwidth, you're still able to communicate by typing messages to each other. The other one is automatic volume adjustment. It sounds weird, but imagine standing in an engine room where you actually can get sound up to a 90 decibel, which is incredibly high. And because it's using Microsoft Teams and it's connected to Office 365, it supports the same enterprise level identity and security. So from a mixed reality perspective, you have a lot of things you can actually do. And one of the things you can actually do, and that you can do, the engineer can do that, but also the expert, is making annotations. So I'm able to point out a specific object which I'm seeing, but the expert can also do that from his Teams machine. That's something I'm going to demonstrate later on. Another one is I'm able to do mixed reality streaming, which allows me to actually stream the image from the HoloLens to the expert. And even the expert can actually share his desktop to the engineer, which allows the expert, for example, if he has a certain part and he wants to explain how the part is set up or how you have to take it apart or put it together, he can actually show it from his own screen and then sending it over to the engineer. The other one is mixed reality capture, which allows me to do capturing, the screen sharing I talked already about. And the most important one is also OneDrive integration, which allows me to do file sharing and display, which means that the one who is using the HoloLens is able to view documents from his OneDrive or documents which are shared by the expert to the engineer. So let's see if we can actually do a good demo in this case. So I'm going to try it again. So the first thing what we need to do is I've set up what we call I have Carlos, if I'm right. If I'm right, yes, Carlos Grillo. And Carlos Grillo is, in this case, the expert, and the expert is running, in this case, as you can see here, in just a Windows 10 environment, having a Teams open. Let me put that back in here so that's visible. So that's one. Secondly, I have a HoloLens on, and I will try to again to see if I can actually share my screen. If that doesn't work, I'm going to share it through the Teams call from the expert. Yeah, it's not going to work. So you have to take this from me, what I'm now doing. So I will be starting up the application, which is Remote Assist. So that is starting. So it's just like a Windows 10 computer starting an application, but the difference is that we have a 3D space instead of a 2D space. So it's now getting things ready. It knows who I am. I'm Alan Steiner in this case, and I'm going to do a call to Carlos. So I'm pressing on Carlos, launching a call, and you will notice in the environment here that Alan Steiner is now calling. So Alan Steiner picks up the call. I'll put off my microphone. And what you now see is actually what I'm seeing through the HoloLens. So I was actually I was trying to do the demo that you can actually see the HoloLens next to it, but this works too. So I'm gonna size the screen a little bit, make it more clear. As you see, if I look into the screen, you can actually double images. So that we're not gonna do. So in this case, you see here what I'm seeing. So you actually have a screen which allows me to do a lot of things, and I will show you. So the first thing I can actually do is important is if I want to chat with Carlos, I can actually, and I'm not able to do speech, I can actually type in here a message and then send something over like this. And what you are now seeing doing already is far reach, because I put it too far away. So I can actually also do it with my hands here. So close that one. So I'm also able to add additional people. While you actually now I'm able to record a session, we had a customer who wanted to do recordings due to some regulations. So they had set up an additional account, which was also added, like opening a participant. In this case, there's only one participant, which is Carlos. But that participant was actually recording it into Teams and then doing everything. Nowadays, you can actually put recording in there to start it, and then it's stored into Stream and becomes available in the chat. So these are the things I can actually use to do the call. So start recording, I'm not doing it, or hang up. The other things, which are important, are above here. And they allow me to actually do annotations. So what I've done here is I've put my latest Lego lever crane here, because I'm actually not on a vessel, so I needed some kind of an object. And I'm now able, for example, to put an arrow somewhere on the device. So let's say I want to point out that we need to do something here. So the cool thing about this is that I'm seeing that arrow, and it doesn't matter where I am. So I can actually, let me move away from the camera. I can actually walk around it, and it will stay there, the arrow. The cool thing is that the expert is seeing it too. But what the expert can actually do is can click, and at that point, it will freeze. And he is now able to show and say, yeah, but you have to look at the wheels, there's something wrong. And you have the chimneys they need to do some kind of a talk about. Stops editing. And what you now will notice is that I have those annotations also. So I can actually walk around, in this case, the device, and look to what he actually has pointed out. So I need to do something with the wheels, and there's something wrong with the chimneys. So what this makes really cool is that the expert doesn't have a 3D screen, but he is able to actually point out annotations. And the trick is that when he does annotations, it's actually translated to the spatial awareness and the understanding, and that calculates and puts the stuff in the same place. Now, there are some other things I can actually do. I'm able to do, put this behind the crane. I can actually take a picture, like pointing it out. Snap, and it will take a picture. Picture is automatically stored. And for example, I'm able to view a document. So let's say that, let's say that we want to share a document. Let me do a new document. So upload one from my computer. Let's say we want to do manual A. And replace. That's when you do demos. And hopefully, as you can see, I'm getting the document also. I'm actually able to read the document. So it only has one simple text. I will put it a little bit here. This is the manual Ref A document. And I can put it anywhere I want. So for example, I can put it for like this. Imagine that this allows me to actually bring up wireframes or mechanical drawings of anything else. And because HoloLens 2 is able to read text in 3D because of the high resolution, it's really easy to do this. So these are most of the things you can actually do. So let's do one small thing. If I do now the recording. Yeah, so it's going to start recording. And put that away. You will notice that it will influence a little bit of my movements. If I stop the recording will now be processed and put into there. So I'm going to show that. So let's now hang up. And what you now actually can see here is that for in the chat, we can actually see that the recording has stopped saving recording to Microsoft Teams. So this helps to record a whole session for certain regulations, if it depends on. It will take some time to get there, as you know. We will get back to that for that. The other thing is you're able to actually view your OneDrive, meaning that this is the OneDrive of the engineer. You will see that if it has received files, it also has the image now here. So the image I just shot was, oh, it was during the day. So this is the one we did just now. As you see, it's just an HD image resolution picture I just made through the HoloLens. They are all stored for the engineer. So the engineer can actually look back to the pictures he has taken to remember stuff of what he needs for whatsoever. So, okay, so let's get back to the presentation. So the next thing is what I want to talk about is there another solution, other device available than Microsoft HoloLens? And yes, there is. Since April 2019, actually April 2019 last year, not this year, we have Remote Assist on an Android device. The advantage is very simple. It's cheaper than an actual HoloLens. And you're also able to do annotations. There is a side mark for that. And the other thing which is important to understand is you have not both hands free. So imagine an engineer in the engine room, that will not be the best solution, but for somebody else who has to do a switchboard, this can actually be a very interesting solution to use. Now I'm going to show that also as a demonstration. So we actually have Alan here again. I have here my phone. I'm gonna go to my Remote Assist app. Now let me click it here because it can also. So I'm gonna launch a call. So you're now gonna. So what I'm now doing is I'm calling, in this case, Carlos. Carlos is getting the call again. And let me. So sound. So what you now actually see is what I'm seeing in through my phone. But there is something which is important to understand, and that's something which makes it more difficult with the phone or with an HoloLens. Well, an HoloLens knows his environment by using the cameras, the 5 cameras I told you about. For an Android device, it actually needs to do a tracking of the environment before you start. And that's the reason why you see here on the right of my phone, but actually, oh, it's away. You saw the lost tracking. So it needs to understand the room where I'm in. So as soon as I fix that, I'm actually able, let me see if to put arrows also on the device. And let me now show you if that actually, as you can see, it actually stays on the place where I put the arrows. So while you don't have a number of other features, it gives you enough features to do some of the things while you don't need an actual HoloLens for that. Now, finally, and that's something we're going to talk about later, is that you can actually post it to a work order in field services. In this case, I will not do that. And I don't want to call Carlos again. So let's hang up. So let's get back to the presentation again. Carlos is called. Let me. No, we're not now. So let's talk about.
Carlos Grillo is currently unavailable.
Yes, he is unavailable.
Please leave a message after the tone.
Yes, we're not going to do that for now. So one of the things which is important to understand is that Remote Assist is not that difficult to use, as you can see here. But what if it's a complex user scenario? I'm going to explain how it can actually become somewhat complex. So let's say we have a company who brings around gas, liquid gas. And they have, for example, a number of vessels. So one vessel has Owen, who's working as an engineer, and when he needs some help, he can actually call somebody who's an expert within the company. But what if the expert is not part of the company? What if the expert is from another company who's delivering elements of the vessel, let's say part of the turbine or a part of an engine? Then the expert is at the other company. In that case, it's still possible as long, in this case, Gaby has an account at a tenant with Office 365 with support teams. And there needs to be a trust between the Contoso Gas and Contoso Liquid. The reason for that is otherwise John will not find Gaby when he's looking for her as a person. But what if you have Bill and Bill says, I need someone from Contoso Volve, but Contoso Volve doesn't use Office 365. In that case, you actually need to create additional accounts within Contoso Gas and give them to the experts from Contoso Valve to allow them to help Bill out. And now making it even more difficult, because this is only the network stuff which is going on. Bill is not working 24 hours. Bill has a lot of colleagues which are working in shifts. So since you have licenses, you need to understand that this has an impact on your cost of what you need to use Remote Assist. So let's talk a little bit about dynamics when we're adding dynamics to the mat. So if you add dynamics to the mat, we actually get what we call Microsoft Dynamics 365 Remote Assist and Field Services. While Remote Assist is part of Dynamics, you don't need Dynamics to actually run Remote Assist. You only need Dynamics when you're using Field Services. And what Field Services does is actually helps you to integrate it with Dynamics. And it allows you, for example, to launch a Remote Assist mobile directly from a Field Service mobile booking. So if somebody has a work order booking to a certain person for the field, it can be connected to from Remote Assist. It also allows you to see relevant work information. And last, it also allows you to integrate with Power BI to have dashboards to see how your work order is going on. That was the thing you actually saw on the phone, which can also be done on the HoloLens, that as soon as you finish the work, you can actually change the work order to finished or to mention something has to be done separately or additionally. So what does it require to actually do Remote Assist? If you only do Remote Assist without Field Services, you need a HoloLens or an Android device. The app can be installed freely, which is the Remote Assist app, which is called the Dynamics 365 Remote Assist. Which is called, the Remote Assist app. For each user on a HoloLens or on an Android device, you need a unique license called the Dynamics 365 Remote Assist license. The license is just a license you can find under the Office 365 tenant licensing. And you have to think about around 50, 60 euros per month per unique user. Now, the expert only needs a Teams and an Azure and an Active Directory account within Azure. If you want to do Field Services, you will have to have a separate license for Field Services. And if you want to do dashboards, you need, of course, a separate license for Power BI. So I'm going a little bit quicker, looking at the time. So there are some challenges. One is network reliability. Remote Assist works with optimal with 1.5 megabit. Here's byte, but it's megabit per second. But in the standard on many vessels, the bandwidth is not much more than about 500-600. You're happy if you can actually reach this. We actually got it to work around 250 to 300 kilobit, which is incredible if you think about it. Many ATIC supported devices, which is actually not this one, do not support that. There is a future degradation, which means video becomes less good. You can have issues with the sound, but then you have the text. But we actually got everything to work till 300 kilobits. So the other one is expert form supplies, what I was talking about. If you're using external users, you need to have an Office 365 plus a team license. It's not possible to invite external users as a guest, but then you only have text chat, which is nothing. The other one is surrounding sound. HoloLens support up to 90 decibel. We actually tested till 120 decibel, which is not normal to hear anymore. And we use therefore noise cancelling headphones like Peltors, which can be used on engineering. And the HoloLens 2 supports connecting cancelling headphones to Bluetooth, which is great, which didn't HoloLens 1 didn't do that. So if we talk about software licenses and deployments, so the software license already talked about, so I'm going to skip this one. Microsoft has three types of licensing models. One is to have a device with Remote Assist for 3 years. You pay upfront an amount. You can do a device with Remote Assist for 1 year. You just pay more per month. Or you have the Sydney standalone device, means you're going to buy your licenses separately. That's my case. I had already an HoloLens 2, and I use the licenses separately from that one. So if you're going to deploy Remote Assist, pure thing, if you look at technically, you only have to do is buy licenses and then or use a trial, which only works for a month, and assign the licenses to users and make the Remote Assist app available to your users. But if you're actually going to implement something like this in an organization, you're not going to, this is not going to be enough, as we have seen in the past. So it's important to understand what the organization you're going to implement, where you're going to implement, you understand what their scenarios are. So it's important to have workshops to define the scenarios. And then the things you need to take into consideration are things like roles or safety. A HoloLens 2 is not ATEX supported. If you look at the liquid gas company I talked to you about, only 50% on board of the vessel, the device can be used. Otherwise, it has to be ATEX supported. So is it still feasible? Is it still giving that return of investment for that customer to use a device like an HoloLens 2 in combination with remote assist applications? Another thing is network availability. How good is network availability in the environment? Is it low? How low is it? We know we can go low as 300 kilobit, but still recommended is 1.5 megabit. So it's important to try to get your recommendations. And one thing which is really important is adoption. Just giving an engineer a HoloLens 2 and saying, use it and call your expert is not going to work. Definitely not. So you need to go with him together. You need to show him when he can actually use it, how he has to use it. And one of the other things is important to understand is how sturdy is the device, because they're going to let the device fall on the ground, or they're going to leave it somewhere without putting it into a charger. So all the things you have to take into consideration. So important in this case to be a partner, not to be an integrator. I'm saying an integrator because I mean, don't do only a technical integration, but be that partner and help them further. So there are a few functionalities of upcoming releases. I have enough time for that part. So one of the things which will be there is sharing files through text chat to improve collaboration. Instead of actually clicking on it, you will be able to actually add the files through the conversation you're having. Now, it's already available on the HoloLens, and it will generally be available from April 2020. So it's just available on the Android device. Sorry. The other one is capture a session history through call recordings with mobile. So one of the things I just mentioned, there was a company who said by regulations, they actually add an additional user in the call, which was recording. You can now record by the expert. The expert is able to set the recording. No, sorry, the engineer is able to do that, and it will come into the chat. But it will be more interesting also to do it to the device and then have it like capturing the history for what you have been doing, showing when you do annotations and stuff whatsoever. So that functionality is going to be available also from 2020. And if I'm right, it was already an option you could see in my phone. Other one, which will become in public preview from June this year, which is almost, is asset capture. And it enables you to use the spatial markup, so the spatial understanding, to do checkups and inspections without having a call. So think of doing, for example, a survey without directly having an expert on site or the one who's actually have to approve the survey. So you can actually capture everything you're doing and then show it in a later state to the one who has actually needs to accept and to agree on if the survey was executed well enough. And so let's say, for example, you have to do a survey or a check on a switchboard, then the switchboard can be approved by someone later by looking at the capture data which is stored. So to wrap it up, Remote Assist delivers a quick and better support and resolves complex problems on site. I think it's clear that using technology like this and using software like this helps to make it much easier for an engineer to connect to an expert. There are no barriers anymore. You can actually put on a device, directly select the expert and talk with him without the need of asking his captain, I need an expert, can you fly one over? Which is far more barrier than just calling him. It also empowers your workers in two ways. The engineer actually gets much easier his work done, while the expert is able to provide help to more engineers in one day. Now, it works on HoloLens 2 and device. I already explained it's low bandwidth and high latencies. We actually got it to work, what I said already, around 300 kilobit, and we actually did, I think, latency below 10 seconds, which is immense. Doesn't even normally happen on a vessel, so don't worry. You can extend it to Dynamics 365 field services, and because it's one of the three big products of Microsoft when it comes to mixed reality, that's Remote Assist Guides, which I'm going to talk about tomorrow, and Visualize, it's continuously expanding the functionality. So it means every month, every 2 months, you get new functionality or improvements of the software. So thank you for listening to this session.